Well, there's two different issues. One is the detailed questions about admission to the legislature in Hong Kong. That's an internal affair of China. I'm not going to comment on it. That's to be decided by the National People's Congress. What is the fundamental question is, what is the basis on which Hong Kong was returned to China? This was an international agreement between Britain and China. It was that there would be one country and two systems. Now, some people in Hong Kong appear to wish to suppress this and just turn it into two systems without discussing one country, but that was not what the agreement was. The agreement was there would be one country and then two systems. Therefore, they've made agitation for things like independence and so on. That which was not in the original agreement. Then I will make a general observation, which is that every country that I know of, when you wish to enter into a very senior position, a president or a member of the legislature, you normally have to swear an oath. In this situation, the President of the United States has to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. This seems to me a quite reasonable thing to do. This would be equivalent in Hong Kong, for example, therefore to swear an allegiance to the Constitution of China. And therefore the issue is normally you have to, in a country, either to the Constitution or to a person, you have to swear to uphold this Constitution. I assume is very reasonable. Similar system will be pursued in China. That means that you will therefore have to follow the Constitution of China. That is a general principle. Hong Kong is bound to be, under the terms of China, is the laws of Hong Kong are ultimately set by the National People's Congress of China. This flows from the fact that it's one country. In any country of which you're a citizen, you have to obey the law. It's very simple. In the case of people in China, the patriotism means upholding the principle of one country. But that was the entire agreement that was made with Britain. It's not correct. This attempt to reduce it to two systems is never what was agreed with Britain. So patriotism, therefore, in this case, means to uphold the principles and laws of China, which you have to agree to, as I said. The true patriots of Hong Kong are people who love China and try to put forward the interests of China. That means putting forward these interests of one country. What is not patriotic is to do what we know that some of the leaders of the Rajas do, which is to propose separatism. I mean, this is completely ridiculous, this idea of separatism in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has never been an independent country during its entire history. First, it was part of China. Then it was part of the British Empire. I wish it hadn't been, but nevertheless it was. And it was then returned to China. The idea that there can be independence of Hong Kong is ridiculous. I mean, if you take it, you can't have a city which declares that it's independent. I mean, in Britain, I'm sure that if you take the richest parts of London, Mayfair, for example, they'd be very happy to have an independent country, because then their taxes would be so low that they wouldn't be contributing anything to the rest of the country. But the idea that part of the City of London or the whole of the City of London could become independent is ridiculous. And or similarly with citizens in the United States. So the idea that Hong Kong could become an independent from China is absolutely absurd. It's a city within China and therefore has to carry out the laws of China. And that was the basis of the agreement of Britain. Somewhat confused because on the one hand, it makes statements about Hong Kong, which are de facto interference in China's internal affairs. But on the other hand, it doesn't really want a confrontation with China over the question of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is peripheral also to what the affairs of the British government are. So therefore, on the one hand, Boris Johnson makes declarations saying that he wants to be a very big friend of China. On the other hand, the British government has banned Huawei from participating in Britain's 5G network. The British government makes some reactionary statements interfering in China's affairs on the question of Hong Kong. And basically, therefore, I would say the British government is caught between two things. On the one hand, it's trying to pursue a policy to please the United States of being very hostile to China. This has replaced the so-called golden period, which was inaugurated by David Cameron. But on the other hand, being hostile to China is against the economic interests of Britain, and it's against the interests of the British people. So therefore, there's rather contradictory pressures in the present time, and the British government's position is not very coherent, to be quite honest.